Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you're having a fabulous day today. If you are interested in true crime like I am, I hope that you would consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. Big warning today in this case. This is a very crimey story. We are going to be talking about a 10-year-old child. This case is very upsetting, to state it mildly. If you are sensitive to child cases, please click off this video. Today, we're going to be talking about the Houston, Texas case involving Kendrick Lee. This case, by far, is one of the most disturbing cases I've covered. You guys know that I have covered so many cases that are horrible. It means a lot when I say this one is up there. So just know this case hasn't gone to trial and more information will come out. So for someone who sees this video that has more information, please just leave it in the comments and I'll try to update everybody as we go as well. In this video, everything is alleged because it hasn't gone to trial. Kendrick Lee was found deceased in his apartment after a 911 call from his older brother went in that stated he had been living in the home with his deceased brother for almost a year. The parents were nowhere to be found when they showed up. So let's start with them to bring you up to speed. The mother of Kendrick Lee was Gloria Williams. Gloria was a 35-year-old at the time of this case. Although Gloria had 6 children total, we are only going to be talking about the 4 boys that were in her care or custody at the time of this case. The other 2 children were in a different home. So who was in Gloria's care was, of course, our victim, who is 8-year-old Kendrick, his older brother, who is 15, and then another brother who is 10 years old. Those 3 were born to Gloria and Courtney Lee. Courtney had not been a part of the boy's life after the parents split in 2012. Courtney moved to Louisiana after he and Gloria broke up in 2012. With Courtney out of the picture, this is when Gloria met Jonathan Kirkland. Gloria and Jonathan had Gloria's youngest child, the 4th child in this case, in 2013. Gloria and Jonathan started dating and she very quickly became pregnant. Jonathan invited Daily Mail to interview him at his apartment, so we have a bit more information about him. Jonathan would state that he's trying to get his life back on track. He would say, "I haven't seen my son for 5 years. The boy is 7, so most of his life," said in a teary-eyed Jonathan, "and I mostly have myself to blame." Jonathan, for the better part of the last decade, has been in and out of jail. He's been convicted of felony domestic violence, a DWI, felon in possession of a weapon, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. Jonathan admits he's been an absent father. Just 1 month ago, he was released from a 3-month stint in county jail for a DWI. Jonathan and Gloria were never married. They went to high school together and reconnected several years later after they left high school. By the time Gloria had 5 other kids with 3 different fathers. Soon after they reconnected, Gloria became pregnant. Right before she gave birth to their son, Jonathan was arrested for domestic violence against his 7-month pregnant Gloria. He ended up serving 2 years in jail after a few probation violations for felony domestic violence conviction. Gloria and her other children were living at Jonathan's mother's house while he was incarcerated. But soon after, Jonathan's mother, Linda Smith, told Gloria that she needed to move out of the house because she was bringing strange men into the home when Smith was at work. Jonathan said Gloria put him on the back burner. She didn't want him anymore to know what or where she was and what she was doing. This seems to be a trend of Gloria. She breaks up with one of the fathers and then blocks cuts them completely and moves on. But it's worth noting that they're good enough when they're interested in her, but when that's no longer, then she completely cuts them off. Jonathan also added, "I didn't want to bother her. I'm not the type that keeps bothering someone. It's your son, dum-dum." Jonathan also claimed Gloria kept changing her number and blocking him on social media, which seems to be a typical behavior of Gloria.
Despite her best efforts to find Williams and the boys, Hetty says her calls and texts were blocked.
Every time we get close to her, she'd go. Get close, she'd go. We didn't understand why at the time, but as you see this whole year of events, we know why now.
Again, probably with good reason. Done with Jonathan, she meets a man named Daryl Towner, a 55-year-old ex-con she met at a local homeless shelter where she was living at the time with her children. Daryl Wayne Towner, but everybody called him Wayne, was said to have, by his family, that he had pitched in with the 4 boys during his marriage to Gloria. Did I mention that they got married? They ended up getting married. The family would say Wayne, Gloria's husband, cared for and loved all 4 of Gloria's children as if they were his own. His family said in a statement through a lawyer that Wayne and Gloria wed in October 2017 after they met at a Houston homeless shelter where he had been staying following the release of prison. He died in August 2019 at the age of 57 from underlying health issues. But back to Courtney, who was Kendrick's, our victim's father, and the other 2 boys' father, moved back to Texas in 2016 because remember, he had moved to Louisiana in 2012. Well, now he's back. It's 2016. And he started seeing the boys again for just over a year. They were every other weekend visits. This came to an end after Easter of 2017. Gloria wanted to get back together with Courtney, but he wasn't interested. Courtney was actually getting married, and Gloria was not happy about it. Courtney wanted the boys to be part of the wedding celebration, but he would never see the boys again. He states that Gloria wanted to make sure the boys were not part of the wedding, so blocked him, and he didn't know where she lived. This is one side of the story, I have to say. I'm sure there is more to the story that Gloria will reveal later. Courtney would say he wouldn't hear from Gloria until 2020 when Gloria messaged Courtney's wife on Facebook to say her husband had died. Courtney then asked her if she needed help with the boys and messaged Gloria his phone number, or the wife gave Gloria her number. It's a bit unclear. But then Gloria blocked them on Facebook again altogether, and she never called. Courtney didn't have a record by his own account. Not much is known other than he was an absent father for whatever reason. Courtney stated he found out about his son being deceased from a reporter. Courtney would state in an article I read he wanted to make it clear, and he wanted to clear up any rumors or misinformation about him. He stated, "I'm alive, I've never been incarcerated, and want to be and always wanted to be involved in my boys' life." He also warned that social media posts out there requesting money and donations for his children aren't associated with him. "Those posts aren't mine," he would say. "I've never asked for money from anybody. I only want my boys back, so you guys should watch out for some fake GoFundMes if you're interested in donating to the boys." Okay, so Gloria's husband Wayne has passed away in August of 2019. She then meets 32-year-old Brian Kotler. I'll insert a little clip of Brian.
I don't know nobody hustling shit, but especially Houston, y'all boys ain't about that shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? Them boys in San Antonio, them boys about that hustle. You know what I'm saying? But look, man, y'all might be able to flouse this shit. Look, man, you know what I'm saying? I'm a nice ass restaurant type shit. And it's just like, I see how y'all motherfuckers all the time trying to live fresh in the bitch just for a damn Instagram and shit. Like, this shit cool, bro. You know what I'm saying? And let me just make y'all wear something, man. You know what I'm saying? We've been through the mud, bro. So it's like, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, FOE, man, this shit still standing like a but it's like, man, I just want to let y'all know, man, it ain't about the money, bro.
Wow, he is a lot. He's definitely a special breed. Gloria's taste in men did not get better with age.
You know what I'm saying? And bitches, you know what I'm saying? Women, whatever the you want to call yourself.
I think that's safe to say. The same month this case started, November 2020, Brian was arrested and accused of being drunk and high with a loaded pistol at a place called Boosie's. The officer would report that, quote, I had to instruct Brian multiple times to place his hands on the steering wheel. The arresting officer said in a statement, when I opened the driver's door to the car to detain Brian, I immediately detected a strong pungent odor of marijuana emitting from his persons and from the cabin of the vehicle. The officer said he found weed and drug paraphernalia in the vehicle, and Brian was taken into custody. He said Brian was lethargic and told him they were in Houston going to Houston. Gloria was with Brian but wasn't charged with anything. She told the officer that they were headed to San Antonio. There were no children with them at this time. It is believed this was just days before this arrest. He had beat 8-year-old Kendrick to death in the home where he would be discovered a year later. In October of 2021, Gloria's older son called 911 to state that he and his 2 brothers were living in a home with their deceased brother Kendrick alone, with no parents living there. Here is when the floodgates open up of what's going on and the beginning of what happened a year earlier. The officers arrive at the residence to walk into conditions that were just awful. Here's a clip of the officer talking about what he saw.
In my long time of working homicides, this one's up there, you know? This one affected us.
We saw soiled carpet, no furniture at all. No bedding, no blankets, nothing that we could see.
Apartment is very dirty. No power, no furniture, blankets, etc. Beds, no. Infected with bugs and cockroaches. And in the bedroom, they find decomposed 8-year-old Kendrick Lee, who had been lying there for just over a year. Allegedly, I have to say that, this hasn't gone to trial yet, the 9-year-old son witnessed Brian cause the death of his brother Kendrick. He witnessed Brian kick and punch his brother until he stopped moving and his eyes went black. Brian then covered Kendrick up with a blanket and left the room. Not long after, Gloria enters the room, pulls down the blanket, and begins to cry. She didn't call 911. She cried. She then made the 9-year-old leave the room. The 9-year-old would go on to say Gloria and Brian began to argue over the situation. Brian kept going in and out of the room to check on Kendrick. This went on for a couple of days. For most of us, most women, this would probably be a deal breaker in a relationship. It's not me, it's you, but not for Gloria. And it gets worse. Gloria stood by and watched as Brian regularly beat her children, but in particular, the 9-year-old, threatening him if he ever said anything. The beatings got worse when Brian was drunk. Brian is believed to be an alcoholic, so he often was drunk. Gloria and Brian, as a punishment, would lock the boys in the room with Kendrick's deceased body for hours. I think they need to be checked if they have a pulse because they don't even seem human at this point.
Yeah, Brian Coulter and Gloria Williams are accused of such heinous crimes. Even seasoned legal professionals are very much affected by the details.
As one of the chief prosecutors in child fatality, this is the only type of case I deal with. I will say that this particular case is such a gross deviation from what we expect humans to behave like.
The 9-year-old, just to clarify, is now 10 years old. But I don't want to make it confusing, so I'll just keep saying 9 years old, but just know this is a year later, he's 10. Also, I just want to leave the boys' names out of this, so that's why I'm using their age to identify them. The 9-year-old said Brian had punched him in the face so hard it made his face swell up. He would need reconstructive surgery because Brian had broken his jaw and it had healed incorrectly from the lack of medical attention for so long.
One of the children says Coulter would, quote, do the worst things ever by wearing a square diamond ring when punching him in the jaw, making the child unable to eat. And then we have new video today showing the inside of a local library, that's the couple, moments before they were arrested in the parking lot of the library.
Gloria, again, stood by and did nothing. Gloria, how do you sleep at night? That's what I want to know. The 7-year-old was also in the room when Brian beat 8-year-old Kendrick to death. He echoed what the 9-year-old said, adding that he remembers Brian kicking Kendrick even after he stopped moving. Gloria stated that just before Thanksgiving the year prior, she had walked into the room when Kendrick was being beaten by Brian, but she had stopped him. It wasn't until the next day when she went into the room to check on him that she realized that he was no longer breathing. She said she then confronted Brian and he said he was sorry and he had just lost it. We are talking about the death of a child, not spilt wine on your favorite shirt. His response doesn't fit the situation. Gloria stated she was afraid to call the police because she was afraid that her children would be taken by CPS, which doesn't make sense, and I'll explain why. They all live in the house together, in the house with the body of the son and brother in the bedroom, deceased, decaying, with an odor so strong that a neighbor actually called the landlord to complain.
Damn, y'all see that motherfucker? Ooh. That bitch say blind. Damn. She told me she wanted a bigger one than that one. I got her the biggest one in the whole damn stuff. Now she talking about she want a bigger one. She can't even find one as big as she wants. And white stones in there for oh, y'all ain't see y'all seen that. She gave me that for Valentine's Day.
In March, 4 months after Kendrick's death, Gloria decided her and her boo, Brian, were going to leave her remaining 3 children, 15 years old, 9 years old, and 7 years old, in the home with their deceased brother, and they would get their own place about 15 minutes away. Gloria looks at Brian and says, "It stinks in here. Want to get our own place?" That's how I see it. I don't know what exactly was said, but no matter how it was said, Gloria and Brian indeed move out. So her saying she didn't want the kids to be taken by CPS is just an excuse. She didn't care about those kids. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been left in that home with their deceased brother. And when they moved, they left nothing in the house for them. Additionally, they stopped paying the electric bill in September as well. So no lights, their brother's body, it's dark, it's infested with roaches. There is not enough therapy for these boys. This sounds scary. These poor children. She continued to pay rent. Not for the children's sake, I guarantee that, just to hide the fact that the body of Kendrick was in that home. She sent groceries to the boys once a month, mostly junk food. They wouldn't last very long for 3 growing boys. After being treated at the hospital, it was revealed that they were all malnourished. The 15-year-old was often given food by the neighbors, but even that wasn't enough. What is amazing is that the 15-year-old was taking care of his his brothers from March till October, with the electricity being turned off in September. I believe that was what did it in for the 15-year-old. He sent his mom a text and said he could not take it anymore, and he dialed 911. I believe it was tied to the power only because they were safer without Gloria and Brian being there, and all three boys would have known that. It was the conditions, I believe, is what put him over the edge. I'm glad Gloria decided to save a few bucks and deprive her kids from power, but it gave the 15-year-old the strength to make that 911 call on October 24th, 2021. Again, just guessing, but this is how I see it. They didn't want their parents back. They just didn't want to live like that anymore. The neighbors that were giving the boys food, again, my opinion, are partially to blame for how long these boys were in this house alone.
Neighbors say they too would provide food but had no idea what was going on inside. Alief ISD confirms the kids hadn't been in school since May of last year, and there were no CPS investigations open, according to the agency, although they had a history with the family. Allie Jacobs is the director of counseling at the Houston Area Women's Center.
What do we need to do to make sure that no other children suffer this way?
What typically happens is kind of this bystander effect, that someone thinks that someone else is going to do something. Don't rely on someone else to do the checking or do the action.
And also ask questions.
Serving meals is helpful, but also like, when was the last time you ate? Like, who's feeding you on a regular basis?
Tonight, those three children are in foster care. Investigators say they will play a huge role in this murder case.
A resident said she noticed something was wrong and started to give the eldest food. She did this for 6 months. She said the teen wouldn't accept cooked meals. He would only take packaged snacks, fruit, and pizza. She said that she didn't want to push him away by asking questions because I knew he was starving and needed food, she would say. How long would it have taken to call CPS or 911 to do a welfare check? For 6 months, this neighbor knew something. Another neighbor said she would see Brian and Gloria come and go, but never saw any children. A third neighbor described the 15-year-old as paranoid and said he was afraid of getting poisoned, which is why he would only accept certain foods. A few times, the neighbor would say, I noticed the lights weren't on, and it was quiet upstairs, so I figured there was trouble because the parents hadn't been there in a while. He would continue to say one day the 15-year-old came down, knocked on his door, and asked if he could charge his phone. And the neighbor would say, we built a bond from there. I started offering him food because I knew he needed more than just a charger. Yes, he did need more. He did need more than a charger. See something, say something. This is a prime example. You guys, my listeners and my subscribers would have made this call. I know it. I just wish these people would have. Very sad. Very disappointing. So Gloria and Brian are brought in for questioning, but then they're released the same day. Luckily, they are not smart enough, but they didn't make a run for it. But the couple was finally arrested on October 26th after they were at a public library looking up information on the library's computer about updates on the case and about them. They were arrested as they walked out into the parking lot of the library. It was discovered that Gloria was receiving $2,000 a month in disability government assistance for 2 of the children.
Prosecutor Andrea Bell told the judge Williams got government checks for 3 of her children. She says that included a daughter who no longer lived with her and 8-year-old Kendrick Lee after he was dead.
One of them being Kendrick. The disability was due to the 2 being on an autism spectrum. I'm sure this will be another charge that Gloria will be facing defrauding the government because she was receiving these payments for Kendrick for over a year, or for almost a year after he had already passed. And I believe this is another reason why she didn't make that call. She knew that the money would stop. How could she pay for another tattoo for Brian if that money goes away? Just so you can get a picture of the life Gloria was living after she left the children in that apartment, they were not crying in a dark place in deep depression. No, they were out drinking. They were living it up with no children.
But it's important to understand what happened so everyone can recognize the signs and hopefully be able to rescue other children who are having to suffer the same nightmare in silence.
You know, the more we learn about this investigation, the worse it gets. Tonight, we're about to give you an inside look into the lives of this mother and her boyfriend. Is upsetting.
Getting high is not for everybody.
These videos and pictures you are seeing are from the public Instagram accounts of Gloria Williams and her boyfriend, Brian Coulter. Scrolling through, they showcase jewelry, food, and he talks about getting drunk or high repeatedly.
I smoke mad weed, I drink mad. Man, look, I just do my fair share of things.
As their children were starving and powerless, they're cooking food, they're showing off their drinks. Again, please, someone check to see if they're human, because it's just unbelievable what these two were capable of doing. They are on a very high bond in jail. I think it's over $1 million or $1 million each. They, of course, pled not guilty. Brian is being held for first-degree murder and Gloria for injury to a child, tampering with evidence, and for injury by omission. She is forbidden to have any contact with the children, nor Brian. Brian is also ordered not to have contact with Gloria or the children. This is all for this case. It is one of the toughest cases that brings to light just how terrible humans can be, as well the neighbors that could have stopped this 6 months sooner. I forgot to mention that one of the neighbors saw the 15-year-old sleeping outside on a slide. This boy was mentally broken in that apartment and just wanted some fresh air outside, sleeping on a slide. Clear signs that something was wrong. I hope they do better. I hope we all do better collectively. I was thinking about this a lot this week. Typically, I'll request that you leave a heart in the comments to the victim, but this week I'd like to mix it up and leave a purple heart for the 15-year-old. He took care of his brothers in conditions that nobody should ever live. And not to mention the extreme bravery of a African-American male to make a call to the police. The Purple Heart displays bravery, and I believe that is just what he had. I hope he never sees this video, but if he does by some off chance, I want him to see that there is good people out there that truly care. Unfortunately, Kendrick had to leave us way too soon, but his life will not be in vain because the two monsters responsible will never hurt these children again. I'll stay on top of this case once it goes to trial, and I can do an update video, but otherwise look for a pinned comment. Thanks to all my channel members who continue to support me. Their names are on the screen. If you would like early access to new videos or decide the cases that I cover, you can join by clicking the join button. Well, if you guys have made it to the end, you guys are rock stars, and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Captured Killers playlist if you'd like to check them out. Either way, stay safe, my loves. As always, remember, if you see something, say something, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.